Into the Nexus is a production of amove.tv. Bookmark Amove TV for other great video games and esports podcasts. Into the Nexus is sponsored by listeners like you via patreon.com/ITN. Greetings and welcome back, everyone, to Into the Nexus, the podcast all about heroes of the storm. I'm Garrett Weinzierl, joined as always by Kyle Fergusson, and not for the first time on the show, but for the first time with me being on the same episode, returning guest, JHow. Thanks for coming back, dude.
I love talking about heroes, so you got a talker here. Garrett's gonna be like, let's not do this again.
Well, if you've been following my Twitter, you know I've had a headache for 2 days. I've never had a headache for 2 days, so I don't know if it's a migraine or a sinus infection or what. But having someone else do the talking sounds real nice right now, so I'm super happy to have you here. But yeah, man. So you've been on before, but you were on an episode when I was traveling. So I'm stoked to be on because Kyle got to ask you all the questions, and now I get to get in on the fun.
Yeah, that was back.
Changed, so
July 25th, 2019, right after movement speed. We were talking stuff about Muradin. I remember ripping it. You taught me how to rip it. That was nice. Yeah, Johanna.
I remember checking my Twitter, and now that I didn't remember what month it was. If it was in July, that means I was actually on vacation, which means I distinctly remember seeing a bunch of tweets about ripping it to the ITN Twitter account on my phone, being like, "What the hell are people talking about?" And then it's that's the new JHow episode. Rad! I'm gonna have to give this a listen, and I did on the very long drive home, and it was lovely. It was a good episode.
Learned all about ripping it.
Has your stance on Rip It changed at all in almost a year actually, in like 11 months?
You still rip it.
You still rip it.
Rip it. Yeah. I was playing a game with some folks a couple weeks ago. We had 3 people in, and one guy was playing Johanna. I'm just throwing him out there. Jet. He didn't rip it. Ando had walked right in front of their team, and I'm like, rip it. He didn't rip it. Things went bad. You'll have to
clip out just like the 5-minute explanation from the show of Rip It, and then you can just link it to people. Just like, here you go. Just so you know. Well, awesome, dude. Thanks for coming back on. There's so much to talk about. Like, it's really exciting. Like when we have a guest on, especially if it's been a little while since they've been on, because it means it becomes an impromptu retrospective of recent things that have changed in the game. Because you're as far as this show is concerned, new voice, So we'd like to check in and see how you feel about the state of things and how they've been changing over the last few months. So before we get into that, and honestly, a lot of today's episode is going to be brought to you by listeners because they've heard you were going to be on, and we've got a lot of questions from our audience for you. So before we get into that, we want to thank those of you supporting us over at patreon.com/ITN. Go check it out over there if you want to support the show and get access to our Discord and some other perks. And to our most recent patrons, thank you to Daddy of the Storm, which is a fantastic name, and Tyler Wagsback is how I'm going to choose to pronounce that one. I'm probably doing it a disservice, but that's okay. You can call me Garrett Wiener Schnitzel if that makes you feel better. So, without further ado, let's get straight into talking to you, JHow. So, like we mentioned, it's been since July since you were on this program. I'm sure a lot of our listeners have been keeping up with you over on your stream. But how are you liking Heroes of the Storm right now? I'm not even sure where to start. I want to start with the Anomaly because it's kind of the largest overarching change to basically every game we play right now is being affected by this. So why don't we start there? How are you liking the Call for Help Anomaly?
The one big change, by the way, outside of the regular in-game was matchmaking. It's made the game much more enjoyable this season. But as far as like the actual gameplay side of things, the Anomaly was very, very oppressive. They nerfed it a little bit, and it feels more manageable. Like there had to be a change. I think everybody acknowledged as soon as that thing came out, it's like, look, first it's going to catch you off guard because nobody expects to die in 4 tower shots, and then all of a sudden it's like even tanks are like, oh, I can't be here, and they're normally the ones that are supposed to be up there. So it's changed the entire dynamic of the game. I'm not really still sure how I feel about it. I will say this, because I'm sure we'll probably touch on some Tracer later. I was able the other day, after the changes, after some of the nerfs on the Anomaly, to where I was able to, one, heal off with Tracer, but at the same time be able to chase down a little bit more since they nerfed some of the damage. So I think it's in a pretty decent spot. Like, one of the changes that I kind of initially thought of that I still wouldn't mind if they wanted to tweak with some stuff is, like, let the first shot be a warning shot. Let the second shot start to nerf your armor, because, like, taking your armor down off one shot is a pretty substantial, like, amount of damage, because you're already taking the tower damage, and that's not the main concern. The main concern, of course, was the tower damage, because it was so much, but it's like, how does that affect the other people that are also defending? And I'm still not entirely sold on the first time that I get hit, it's either -5 or -10. Like, that's just, it's too much. It's too much. And if I take one from here and one from there, it's like, I'm taking so much damage so fast. The tower shots are one thing, but the minute the heroes get involved, which, for what it's worth, it makes it more defensible. So the fact that the heroes now can get involved, like, it stops you in your tracks instantly. So I hope that they're not done looking at it. And I think one of my main concerns is, now, first off, if we look back at the globe changes, they were really bad, then they made them really good. And they also said anomalies aren't permanent, because it's just going to be for that season. I feel like that's their way of saying, we just want you to get used to them so we can make them permanent. So I really hope that they continue to find tweaks around this, because I'm not a big fan of the current iteration still, because first shot armor reduction can be the difference between whether you can continue to win a battle, which 6.5 out of 10, no comeback mechanics, right? There's comeback mechanics in the game already. Making it harder to end when you're ahead, I think, is very unfulfilling to be a winning team, because it just makes it so every late game can be like, whatever, like, one person dies on a push and it's just like, you're back in the game. To me, that feels tough still, even after the nerfs.
That makes a lot of sense. And we have, things like Alex Strauss's Flame Buffet that have to apply a mark first and then sort of, get going after. I think it'd be natural to assume, okay, ding and ding, and ding to me now, and now we continue the armor. So there's a lot of thought and conversation going around making it a more defensive buff, like the building has an aura that gives out armor to people who are defending. Would that be in a better place for you rather than this more aggressive version?
I don't mind that idea. I think it's okay. It's just not being able to push to any degree on something that's shooting once per second, that's dropping, like, when you consider that it's -10 and then it just goes up so fast, it's like, I can't be here for more than 2 seconds. Like, that's so ridiculous. And that's the part that, like, if you're there 3 seconds, like, you're probably not going to make it out, or by the time you make it out, you can't go back in. There's just not a whole lot you can do. Given a defensive aura, I think would be a nice change. Like, I'd like to see it in action. I don't know how I feel. Like, this is the game I've known for so long, and they make, look, XP changes are one thing. These type of changes, like, change everything, like the entire baseline of the game. This isn't like, you got to make sure you pick up globes. You should already be in the general vicinity, but, like, they compromised, they figured it out. These changes are just so drastic. Like, even, like, what have we been in, like, 3 weeks now, 4 weeks almost of this, and I'm still watching people get punished the same way. And I feel like, here's how I explain it with the map rotation, right? There's 14 or 15 maps in Heroes. People don't master maps because there's so many maps. They master their heroes because that's the only thing they know how to play consistently. If you're a casual player, you're only going to play on these maps 2 to 3 times a week if you're playing a couple hours a day, if you're a quick match player. And so if you take that and you make that same correlation to the people that are casual players, maybe they play 4 to 5 games a night at best, right? Let's say, we're not stuck in lockdown and people don't have the same amount of free time. you might be a tank main, but sometimes you're going to play tank 2 out of those 4 games. You'll play a tank 1 out of those 4 games because nobody else did. So now all of a sudden, like, you're getting the same type of experience. Let's say you're losing, so you're not getting that. And then let's say the other game you're winning, so it's a 50-50. I win 1, I lose 1. I play tank 2 times a day. I have the opportunity to potentially experience that once per day, twice per day from a tank perspective, once per day, twice per day from a ranged assassin's perspective. And I feel like it's so drastic to add that and the core changes and all this stuff that it's like, it's going to take a very long amount of time to figure this out. And I think that's the bigger problem, is that we're never going to have this very like strong solidified area, because it's so oppressive and so many changes continue to go in that it's so over the top that it makes the learning curve that much harder. You learn quickly that you can't stay there, but how to balance and work around that is a very long process. It's that drastic of a change that's the part, is like, some people will never learn, some people will learn in 3 months, and some people will learn in 2 weeks. And that to me is what makes this so hard to balance, because the experience you get from, I'm diving this fort, what can I get away with? I don't know. I can maybe do it once per game if I'm lucky. And I think that is what makes it so difficult to balance right now. And that's why, like, it's such a drastic change that you have to come up with something that's more user friendly and not so punishing. It's like, I go in as a tank, I get the stun, and then I walk away, and next thing you know, my damage dealer is taking that exact same damage, except it's far more impactful to them, and they don't quite realize, and they're like, wait a minute, I thought I was fine here. You're no longer fine. And it just, it flips everything so fast and so drastic. And I think that just creates unfortunate opportunities. Like, half of the games right now are decided by one person taking too much damage from a fort or a keep, and that's how it goes. And that's why it's so frustrating, I think, for me and a lot of people. Even with the nerfs, I'm just not a fan of it.
It's echoed in Reddit in an interesting way right now. Of course, we're continuing to talk about Smurfs, but over the last 2 weeks, there's been a great increase in the number of people complaining about tank Smurfs, that the tanks on the enemy side are just too darn powerful or too good all of a sudden. And I think that highlights exactly what you're saying, and that if a tank knows what they're doing, has that experience to bring to the table, it's a huge swing.
Well, you clearly have noticed that they're too good, and you probably noticed what they're doing, which is why you've come to that conclusion. So why don't you learn from that tank and start tanking that way? I don't know.
Learning and
that takes introspective and thought, and
So people who've been listening to the show for a while know that I'm rather enjoying the anomaly, and so yeah, that's kind of my feeling, is like, why, if you're sitting there complaining that other people know how to do it, why don't you just do what they're doing? Like, how is that so hard?
Just do it for Ed.
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of, but one of the points you brought up, JHow, that I found interesting is, you mentioned that maybe not everything is individually problematic, but when you add all of these changes in at once, and you specifically called out like the fort and the tower changes versus, and plus the core changes all at the same time. Do you think the core changes are impactful as well as a standalone? Because to me, they don't seem as, like, even close to as impactful as the fort and the keep changes.
On Dragonshire and Garden of Terror, they're pretty scary. I think Dragonshire is really scary. Cursed Hollow, not so much. The root one is kind of scary, but that's pretty easy to move around. One misclick, though, can get you punished. But most of them don't really feel impactful, like Braxis and Hanamura. Not only are they easy to dodge, but the sounds of fireworks are a little weird. Those just feel like, it makes it feel comical. It's like this epic core rush, and I'm like, what is this, a party? But the ones on Dragonshire and Garden are actually really scary. Those are probably the only good ones. The reason why Dragonshire is scary is because they can overlap, and they don't have like set spots that they go out. They don't just go out under your feet. They can stagger. They can kind of move in different directions. So it makes it a little more difficult. I'm glad all of them aren't like that. I think that the core changes have been, I don't even think anybody cares about them. Like, I don't feel like they've had major impacts on the game, except for on those two maps, the polymorph on Garden and the stone whatever one on Dragonshire. The Dragonshire is probably the most difficult one, because if you consider the core on Dragonshire, making the rotation around the core because it's such a compact area. It's really hard to rotate left because the keep is so close. If you're moving right, it's hard to move left because the keeps are closer in that regard, and you don't have a lot of leeway compared to, say, something like Volskaya, to where there's a pretty big gap in area that you can move around in a different way. There's not a lot of wiggle room there. It's either you have to funnel in, and it makes it easier to defend as a result. So the core changes, let's just say I wasn't a fan when they were announced, and then after they're in the game, it's like, again, you're adding more variables to, again, if you're a casual player, you're playing 14 maps, and if you get 3 games a day, 4 games a day, you're only playing each map 1 to 2 times a week. And I feel like that's one of the core issues with Heroes. Is it fun? Yes. Are the games fun? Yes. Do I still like the game? Yes. There's too many maps for me. And when you start adding in drastic change after drastic change that it's already hard for people to tackle, like anybody can figure out the XP. But when you start taking 14 different maps that have 14 different functions on top of your forts and keeps, I think it's just been a bit too much for the season.
That's interesting. The overall consensus in the community seemed to be that the design wasn't map per map enough, which would only increase the burden of knowledge.
Yeah,
if we went through and made every tower different.
And that's kind of why I was curious on your thoughts of it being all bundled together, because like and I kind of agree with you, if really only 2 of the cores across all these battlegrounds are truly a threat, then does it really matter that there's that much variation between the cores? And then the fort and keep thing is the same on every single map. So it should, honestly, I clearly don't see eye to eye on this, but like it feels to me like it shouldn't be that hard to wrap your head around something that is game wide.
Yeah, well, but I think my argument is that when you have so many different maps, and I think I come from a very different perspective. I love strategy. I was part of the competitive scene for a long time. And when you play at a high level and then you play, like, say I had rank decay and then I'm at mid diamond, look, I'm not going to say I'm the best mechanical player in the world. Nobody's going to make that argument. But in terms of knowing the game and understanding the maps, it's like when you play at higher levels, when you play Master, Grandmaster, people understand camp timings and rotations. From like Diamond 2 to Diamond 3 down, like you couldn't tell me like 2% of the population knows when to get camps, when to make rotations. And so when you make them more difficult to understand, you're not learning. And at this point, I mean, if you haven't learned by now, when are you going to learn, right? So maybe it's kind of going against myself there. But I when you have so many maps and you add more variables to something to where people haven't even figured out the variables that are already there, I think it just makes it more difficult. And again, like one person gets caught out under towers, one person gets caught out under a keep late game, and you're up 2 levels, like that's happening right now. And that is very different in terms of the drastic nature of like, look, one person gets caught out in a rotation, you got worked. You get caught out like trying to push with an objective when it's 19-16, 19-17, and you go to dive that tower. That's normally a winning situation. And it should be a winning situation. Like that's the Heroes of the Storm that we know. If it's 19-17 and I have a Punisher on Infernal Shrines and you have a keep that's already exposed, that's a win condition for me. I should be winning this game at this point of the game. Now it's the complete opposite. I'm trying not to die and I'm playing for a keep at level 19. Like I don't know if they want both teams to get to level 20. I don't know the philosophy behind that, but that's basically what you're forcing people in, is to have 20 versus 20 fights almost every game. Like the average game time has gone up, and game time means higher levels. And almost every game that I'm in has a level 20 versus 20 fight. If that's their philosophy and that's what they want, then mission accomplished. But nobody's directly come out and said that, or at least I haven't seen that is their goal, to have longer games, for 20 versus 20 fights to be more common. And I feel like and we all know a 20 versus, like if it's 22 versus 22, you've scaled enough to where you should have a fort down. And if you get a 5-man team wipe, you can go take keep and go core, like uncontested. Everybody should know that, right? But like now you have these fights where it's 20-21 and you have these 2 teams, and a level 20 team fight punishes the winning team more drastically than the winning team that just punished a team for the first 16 minutes of the game. And it's like, so those 2 to 3 minutes completely turn the game around. And that's a direct result of the keep and fort changes. If they wanted to slow the game down, they should come out and say, we want to slow the game down. We want to get here. But it changes the dynamic of heroes from I'm rewarded for being good early, and I'm rewarded for being able to win the game because I've been good. But I'm not rewarded anymore in the same light. And if they want to have 20 versus 20 fights, they need to say, this is our mindset and this is our philosophy of the game. Because right now, they're changing the entire philosophy of when and how you can end. And it's being punished, and it's going to take a long time for people to continue to figure out when they can end. I mean, there's always the joke of like, oh, you got to get all the camps on the map before you end, right? Because there's so many people, it's like they don't know when they can end. And it makes it more difficult now to know when you can end, and it makes it more difficult to end at the same time. And that, to me, is like the biggest problem is, if your philosophy is you want more 20 versus 20 fights and you want longer games, then say it. But right now, I don't know if that's what they want, but that's what it feels like.
I feel you. So could we tackle this in a number of ways? Could we go about decreasing the number of maps in ranked? Just taking that number from whatever huge it is down to 4 for maybe not the whole season, but, a mini season.
Like, I think we have to acknowledge, and with all due respect, I know people that have worked on the maps. I know people that have done various things on the maps and things like that. I don't know of a single person that likes Hanamura, right? Like, there might be like 1% of the population. It's like, I like Hanamura. And I'm like, okay, well, most people that play ranked don't like Hanamura. I think some of the changes that they made, which I believe there was a post saying they actually didn't go through.
Yeah, that is true. They did not. So we've all been sitting around all week being like, now watch out for the objective. It's bad. It didn't happen.
Yeah. Sadly. Like the objective has never won that game. It's always been the samurai camp and that. And like, you got people that don't know to get samurai camp, right? And they're like, oh, just push with the objective. It's like, go get the camp and then push, like it's not hard to figure out. And so it seems like they're set on, I think we're at 9 maps this season because they added Garden of Terror and Kepfelskaya. And so 9 maps is a lot in ranked. I mean, I think the majority of the population probably plays quick match anyways, but for ranked, yeah, I wish we had less maps, but I don't see that happening. Like 9 maps is way too many. Like 7 maps is too many. Like 6 would be the absolute most. But then it's like, what 2-lane maps do we want versus what 3-lane maps do we want? And it seems like they've put an emphasis on making sure that they have Hanamura, Abraxas, and Battlefield of Eternity in every rotation. And I think that is, again, I want to, like, you guys get the luxury of talking to these people. I want to be able to sit down and be like, what is your philosophy? What are you trying to accomplish with these maps? What are you trying to accomplish with the map pool? And like, I wish it was less, because there's just so many maps that they become a bit of a fiesta, to say the least.
I mean, that's where I definitely like both feet in your boat now. Like, too large of a map rotation has always been something that I've talked about. It's been a while since we've gotten on the subject because there's been so much other stuff to discuss. But anytime the dust would settle and we came back around to standing on our own soapboxes, I'd be like, hey, I think there's too many damn maps in the map rotation. Like, I really like that there's a lot of maps. I don't want to, if I want to play Dota, I'll go play Dota. But it's a balancing act. Like, there's a reason and honestly, I would like to go one further and like, can we please sync up Quick Match with what's currently going on in Storm League, so that like when I'm not feeling Storm League, but I want to do a warm up game, I'm not doing it on a map that is teaching me nothing useful for draft.
What do you mean, Warhead Junction's not cool?
Listen, man, I love Night of Sagara, I really do. So every now and then I like to slum it on Warhead Junction, but oh boy, yeah, it's 9 times out of 10 when I'm going into Quick Match because I'm doing a warm-up game. Maybe it's been a few days since I logged in. Like, it's time to get my fingers dusted off and figure out what the hell's going on. And I would really, I don't know. For me, it's Black Hearts. Black Hearts what stilts me. I'm like, why do we put this with freaking mines, man? Even though I kind of miss mines, but go put this.
You know what
mines.
my favorite design map is Black Hearts. Believe it or not.
Oh man, wow!
I like the way it looks.
We need to have you on the show more often.
Yeah, we're appreciating the aesthetic. Mr. Krabs is yelling at you.
The aesthetic is very nice.
Yeah.
Oh,
I love the look of Black Hearts. I think it's really cool.
It looks like a bad Roller Coaster Tycoon 1 theme park. It is so generic. So you really like wood planks. That's what
You
gets.
take that back.
Yeah, wood planks
There's
in the
nothing
water.
wrong with Roller Coaster Tycoon.
I love Roller Coaster Tycoon, but it is, it looks very.
No, but it is a fascinating world we live in with Heroes of the Storm. I feel like we've kind of got compounding problems right now in that we have these really interesting maps that have very specific timings. We have Garden of Terror entering rotation where those timings, that amount of merc camps is very different and huge for how you're going to play that game. And yet we are taking our heroes and making them extremely nuanced, like Cassia. And I can't jump from Cassia to Tracer. I can't go from Imperius to Artanis. In my time in Dota, granted, this was very, thought bot level internet times when I was playing Warcraft 3 Dota, but we simply did not. We just jumped between heroes freely and bought the same items because we knew how to use them. The heroes through the item system kind of leveled out. And in heroes, like the skills you need. So I feel like we're having even more one tricks because of the hero design being so intense. And that's like complaining about having too much delicious food. I mean, I've gone to many restaurants. I'm sick of eating out. Like I love that these characters are so different, yet it is causing a problem.
Like when you mentioned Cassia, right? Think about how many auto attack heroes that you would feel comfortable picking in every game. And the list is about 3, maybe 2. Like that's the weird part for me for a MOBA is that, look, I actually really like Lunara. Raynor, bless our boy, is most people consider him to be a little vanilla, to say the least. And outside, maybe you squeeze Phoenix in there, but Phoenix has weird giant hitbox, and that makes it weird. But like, how many auto attack heroes? Like Vala has a lot of pitfalls, and I really feel that they tried to make Cassia that other auto attacker that could fit in. That's not like 4 range. So they put her at 4.5, and they're like, well, if we're gonna give this, then we got to take away here. And I actually think that from a design and rework perspective, it's exactly what we needed for another ranged assassin. I just think she's undertuned. Like, I just think because like when you can normalize the auto attack speed, which 1.33 is very weird, kind of like what you were saying, right? Like if I go from Vala or Raynor and I go to play Cassia, I'm going from 1 auto attack speed to 1.33, and that feels very different. It takes a little bit to get into the rhythm. And not only that, but I'm having to play from 5.5 to 6 auto attack range to 4 auto attack range. And it's like I'm dancing for my life. And right now you're still dancing for your life. But to a lesser degree, because you got that extra half attack range, which for most people doesn't sound like a lot, but I can tell you going from playing a lot of Tracer, like that half range is different now. And I think that they're trying to fit that role to normalize some of that. But I think right now it's just numbers. And if we can find some way, because every iteration of a new hero, they're like, we wanted to do something we've never done on a hero before. And I think that's great. It's actually made for, as you said, too much good food. It's like, every course is a main course, and it's like, well, eventually, like, I need an appetizer. And at this point now, with the new cadence that they've spoken of, I don't think we get many more appetizers. So it does leave it to rework some of the already existing heroes.
It's a burden of riches. I mean, this week I feel like I've really clicked with Urel. I've been putting a ton of work into her, and I was in a situation last night where I was like, wow, I could really use a Chen. Let me just sign myself up for 2 seasons of work real quick so I can play the Bear Man after I've spent 2 seasons getting Urel under my belt. I can't complain because I love it, but it's a brand of insanity that we deal with.
Urel's OP though, man. Urel is super OP.
Yeah. The only tough thing is battling the perception that you should never die, and that's true. But it's like when Johanna dies in like the opening fight, and like everything went wrong, and it was 5-on-5, but everyone's like, here we go, crud Johanna on the team, dead one time.
Just tell them, wait till I rip it. Give me 10.
Just gotta get 10. Just gotta get 10.
Oh, jeez.
Before we move too far away from the anomaly, of course, we get an anomaly. We go, oh, well, what else could there be? Do you think there's a world where we could have, like, I don't know, maybe they call it Dark Director, but we just increase the noise on camps? You know, the announcers, they make big deals about point control and the actual objective coming up, but no one's like, all right, you lasses, like, let's get over to the Merc camp. We got to take it at 50 seconds.
If you are you talking about like it's natural or like a ping? Like if you ping it, it would be more, or like just an in-game announcer would be like, don't forget camps, like.
Right, or maybe even like a targeting kind of comes down. Let's say, bruisers and giants activate at the same time, but a sort of effect happens on the mini map. I
think that would be a very good change. I actually really like that idea. Like right now, like it's very subtle to know, but if it, like, think about the ping you get when you capture it, right? Like that's much more noticeable. Like it even goes when you capture it and it's meant for the enemy team. Like, yeah, I think that'd actually be a very good idea to have a much more noticeable thing of like, this camp is now active. Like, I don't know how that works. Like if it'd be too distracting, like it'd have to be like balanced enough. So if you're in the middle of a team fight, it comes up, it's like, what was that ability? I actually really like that idea because like a lot of people lose track of that. And it's like you can ping. I think people are accustomed to ignoring pings in game, it feels like. So I think if you could find a way to make it more noticeable, I would really go for that idea. And I feel like it's not like, look, I'm no game developer, but based on what I've seen, what our team is capable of with Heroes of the Storm, that seems well within their reach.
I'd like to see it. So it's kind of, at first I thought you were talking about something that like basically spells out timings, but you're talking more about initial spawn and respawn of merc camps.
Yeah, just making sure that first wave is going. And then, of course, if you choose to ignore it, much like you might choose to, cook a recipe wrong because you're an awesome cook and you are breaking the rules to be edgy and on a TV show, like we may choose to say, no, I'm going to take a camp at another time. But like these, particularly on something like Garden of Terror, where there's just so many that we have to get to, and it becomes so important. Hanamura, samurais, we can empower those moments.
Would you say it would be balanced to this? And look, there's neutral camps, like say Battlefield of Eternity. North and South camps are in neutral territory. Would you say that maybe that would be resigned to just camps on your side of the map, but there would be a shared one for neutral positioning?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Like that way it's not just like alerting you. Again, Garden of Terror is like the extreme example because there's literally so many camps, but let's say I'm on Alterac Pass. Like the one thing that baffles me about Alterac Pass, like the people are like, camps don't do anything. I'm like, first off, you're crazy. Like they give experience baseline. And they do. I remember somebody saying they didn't want to get turret camp because the turret sucks. I'm like, this is on Volskaya. I'm like, that turret camp gives you 450 or 490 XP at the start of the game. Like that's equivalent of like multiple waves of XP, man. Like
I distinctly remember when Volskaya first came up, I was like, oh, you don't get like auto push from taking bot mercs, and I thought it was terrible. And like within days, I was like, I love this. I've moved on with my life. I have realized the errors of my ways. Yeah, I don't understand.
That's so weird. That's like if statistically I had an advantage if I wore a scarf when I played and I chose not to do it. Like,
oh my God, it's like if statistically you're asked to wear a mask to save people's lives and you couldn't be bothered.
No, man.
You have an advantage when you bring a gun you can put on the ground to a team fight.
I saw a good one this morning, but I'm holding back.
that hurts my soul. That hurts my soul to hear.
I don't want to take a few minutes to take a turret so I can basically guarantee a win in this team fight that's about to happen. What? Why?
Like everybody, I think it's like, I don't know if people just become accustomed to it, right? So the Null camp on Alterac Pass, every camp spawns at 1 minute now. Bosses spawn at 5 minutes. 1 minute in, the respawn timer is what on that camp? I mean, I would venture to say that if I put that in a questionnaire, like 70% of the people would get it right and 30% would get it wrong. Like, do you guys know what the respawn timer is on that camp?
No.
Okay, it starts at 1 minute. It has a 2-minute respawn timer. Or one, it's not 1:30. It's 2. Even Porky doesn't know, and he's a master player.
Porky could be trolling you, though.
The objective spawns at what time? 3 minutes. So if I start the camp at 1 minute, and the objective starts at 3 minutes, and the respawn on that camp is 2 minutes. You see where I'm going with this?
Are you getting at something here that we could have two
This
guns?
is what I'm saying on, like, when there's so many maps that we can't master the simple stuff, like it at lower levels, it's like you've got to like claw, drag, ping, type, like, please come help me because I can't solo this. Not a lot of heroes can solo that camp. And so it's like, please come help me with this camp. And then as soon as the objective's coming up, because it's impossible for a team to channel within the first 10 to 15 seconds, you get the camp again. And now you've gotten 2 rotations of camps, and you now have something to distract them so that you can make a move. If the enemy team matches you, nobody wins. But why would you not take that rotation? This goes back to my too many maps argument, because I feel if you played the map 100 times, 200 times, you'd realize like what these things do. If you only play it a handful of times, because there's 8,000 maps, you're never going to learn the simple, like, basic elements of the map. It's the same for Volskaya. If I get that turret camp at 1 minute, I can still, unless I just wipe the enemy team in the middle of that fight, you can always walk off, go do something else, go get the turret camp, come back and reload, and you have an advantage twice in one fight. Twice. And like, I feel like the easiest stuff to do in this game somehow is the hardest.
You not that I needed to be brought more over to the side of we have too many maps, because I was already on board for that.
But, yeah, we'll move on.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say, like, I think it was last week, might have been 2 weeks ago, but we started talking about mines, because it got brought up that it's not looking like it's coming back anytime soon. And there was a really long time where I was just like, back when Mines was in rotation, where I was like, I hate this map, I'm done with it, can we just please get rid of it? And it's been gone so long now that Kyle and I were talking on the episode last week, and I was like, you know, I'm finally nostalgic for Mines, but not because of what the battleground was. It was because of the understanding of the community as a whole on how to run it, and the timing for camps, and how to win it. And like, that's the only time I can think of in the history of Heroes of the Storm that 90% of the games I played on a map, everyone was on the same page for timings.
Remember when they like added the night camp was in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think about how many people contested that. That used to be one of the most contested camps in all of Heroes of the Storm. Every time. It's like you would see the enemy team going out there and you're like, I need to be there. And there would be people sitting on that camp waiting to take it. Like, that used to be a thing. Oh, your siege giants are over there and you're down there. I'm taking your camp because I know it's valuable.
Camp taught me what anchoring was. Like, yeah, it's just something that popped in my mind recently, and you made me think of it again with the too many maps. But whatever the case is, Kyle, I've completely lost track of what questions we were on.
No, it's all good. It's all good. You know who can take a little bit of camps now? There's my transition. Tracer with her lifesteal can actually get something done. How is Tracer working out for you? We talked a little bit about Cassia already.
I lost the game today, but I have like an 80% win rate on her right now. She's pretty broken.
How do you feel emotionally about the Tracer rework? Because there was so much doomsaying, and her win rate's never been higher.
Yeah, well, it's I think there was the shock factor. Everybody's so used to, like, I charge up my pulse bomb. I know I'm within range of getting my pulse bomb. A lot of people know I play a lot of Tracer, right? So I'm in my range by pulse bomb. Okay, I use my blink charges to go in. I find the target that I want. I'm sitting on them for as long as I can. And then as soon as I know I have them within kill potential, I go in, I blink, I RWE, and then I'm out. And that was how everybody has always played Tracer. There's never been another way. Unless you have a Tassadar and a Malfurion, you can't live in the enemy team. Now, you can live on the enemy team in whatever direction you want. And if you're even semi-competent on Tracer, the fact that you can move while auto-attacking and blink, like, you should almost never, ever get hit unless it's, ping or something, And so now, like, she's like the impossible hero to ban around, like it's or to balance around. The only thing that I think that could even remotely keep Tracer within reach is if they put a cooldown on her blink charges, to where like you had a 1 second downtime after you blink. To be fair, you're still moving while auto attacking. I don't know if they'll ever be able to balance this hero other than just like they have to nerf her to where she can't be played, because she's so broken when she's even remotely balanced because sheer mobility.
Do you think that we could just target the lifesteal down a bit and put her back in to something maybe at least supported by her team, so therefore we have this burden of execution going on to get her on the team? Oh, we lost JHow.
Disagreed with that suggestion so much he left.
But he inhaled.
Yeah, my Discord just restarted.
No worries.
I'm back, I think.
I can't see you, but I can hear you.
There we go. My Discord just like restarted. I don't know. Like the one example I gave people the other day, I think her lifesteal is like 15% right now. Kerrigan got a massive overhaul a couple of years ago, and her trait before the rework was 10% of her autos and stuff was a shield. Then they reworked her and they made it 15%. Kerrigan was in every single game because she all of a sudden became almost unkillable, and if she's killing you and you can't kill her, it's a very terrible time for everybody. And even if you didn't kill her, all she has to do is auto and hit a few Qs, and she doesn't miss her combo, she's still alive. Tracer is at that exact same crossroads, to where like if you and then they ended up nerfing Kerrigan back to 10%, and then she went out of the meta again. Tracer's in that exact same boat. She has 15% on lifesteal. It's a little different because the numbers are so skewed because it's very different heroes, but I think it's going to be in that exact same territory, that if you take it from 15 to 10%, she would fall out. The difference is that if Tracer has a Malfurion or maybe an Anduin or somebody that can put a heal on her from distance, she'll still be a pretty scary hero. As long as her damage numbers are enough and you can keep her current playstyle, like she's going to be oppressive. And like right now, again, they tried to put Cassia more into that standard auto attack role. But if you look at your games, how many standard auto attackers do you have outside of Raynor, Greymane, and we kind of throw Sylvanas in there even though she's hybrid? There's none. So like you have to resort to Phoenix. Even Lunara's not as good now. Like there's no ranged assassins other than like 3 or 4 that can deal with a Tracer. And there's only one tank reasonably that can deal with a Tracer, and that's Diablo. There's a few healers that can kind of deal with it if you get a polymorph into a variant taunt. And that's about it. And because there's not your plethora of standard auto attack heroes that are so prominent, Vala can't do it. Like there's almost no standard auto attackers enough to deal with a Tracer. And I think that's like one of the core problems, is that any hero with mobility, the only thing that works against them, before Raynor rework and Dustin Browder was still somewhere in existence in Heroes of the Storm, somebody asked, how do you deal with that? Dustin Browder tweeted back at them at the time. He said, I just pick Raynor and auto attacker. And it was like, this is before Raynor rework. So it's just like, yeah, okay, man. Like, but then you realize like that's what actually works, is that ranged auto attackers that could just stand their ground and shoot back against her are what works. Phoenix kind of fits in there, but then they also have to fit into the team fight, and I think Phoenix is in a weird spot. And so because of that, you have this impossible balancing machine of balancing Tracer's damage, her lifesteal, her mobility. Her mobility is what makes her strong. So you can't nerf the mobility because this is just how she plays. She moves while auto attacking, and she can blink out of any CC you throw at her. So because of that, there's nothing you can do other than nerf her, and then she's not good. And that's it. It's like the impossible job for anybody trying to balance Tracer right now.
All right, so mercifully, you don't actually have to be the one to decide how to nerf her, but let's say you had to make the call. Do you go for the lifesteal or do you go for the mobility? Is there one way you naturally lean? And I'm just asking you, JHow, as a person with opinions.
To nerf her, to keep her from just dominating all the games, you have to nerf her lifesteal. Like that's the number one thing. But if she has a Malfurion, you're still gonna have like that oppressive combo.
She's
but
an
at
interesting
least it's
one,
much more narrow.
but she still has one job, which makes her kind of interesting in that, you know, you mentioned it's hard to counter her, which is true. So we might, you know, stack on multiple counters, and we get in the situation I had it happen last night where they went Diablo early, so we grabbed a cleanse. Well, they got a Varian with taunt, so we grabbed a second cleanse, and we had this sort of escalation war as to who was going to be able to kill the Tracer or keep her alive. But she's got one job. It's a simpler equation than someone like Samuro, who has many jobs. Tracer, at least as we play her right now, if you shut her down in team fights, she'll go, oh man, whoops, like a bad draft, whoops, messed up. Whereas Sammy will be like, no problem, camps, multi-pushing, I'll attack the front line instead. How do we make that draft work in that regard? And yet I'm fully aware that we have trouble drafting in the first place in most leagues.
Well, like her biggest weakness, of course, is wave clear. So she doesn't clear waves. She does have one job, and that's to kill people and be very annoying at doing so. Kill people and be unkillable. That's Tracer's job. And right now, a good Tracer player is almost unkillable. You can blink out, like I talk about Diablo. I can blink out of stuff to avoid being charged into a wall. I might still eat the charge. I can hold my E button to avoid any follow-up CC. Like I can do a lot of different things that requires almost perfect play on the enemy team. And even then, I'm probably still winning that trade. And so I think that if they can nerf, like if you nerf her damage, then you subsequently nerf her self-healing. If you nerf her self-healing, there's still ways to work around that. If you nerf, like, I don't know, they nerfed her pulse bomb damage, they nerfed everything, and she's more terrifying now than she's ever been because she can self-heal. If she can't self-heal, like, she can't be played. If she can self-heal, she's way too strong. So it's like, you got to find a middle ground, and either way, like, there's going to be a bunch of unhappy people, and I think that just nerfing the healing down to 10% has got to be the first step.
I mean, what if we went, you know, in that extreme of a job? We took melee and we made it not work on lanes at all. It had to be heroic target. We took away her splash talents at 16, even though, from my knowledge, we're going armor so we can get that damage up because that's your job. But we can, what if we like really restricted her role into that and saw a win rate decrease?
I mean, you could take the healing off of minions, but then that would be weird.
Yeah, I
like,
mean,
they already have a talent in the game that gives you more healing on heroes based on your blink charges. So like they at least are aware of like trying to figure out how to make that a thing. So you got to nerf. Every situation comes back to, look, you can go self-heal off of minions. Like there's been times where like I'm in the middle of a fight. I'm like, I can't take another shot. My healer, I might have a Brightwing or something, and she and Emerald win, and I don't get heals, right? So I would just move back and I just start attacking whatever's near me. It's not a lot of healing, but it's enough for me to re-enter the fight and come right back. Like, and then there's the health pack talent at 4. I just think that no matter what, it all comes back to the fact that Tracer can self-heal. Mm-hmm. And even then, like, she's still going to be oppressive because a good Tracer player should avoid almost all CC and be able to not die as a result. So the way to not die is to be able, I'm not kidding when I say, like, I remember I was playing on Sky Temple and I ran a Stukov down under the fort. And now obviously this is after the fort damage changes, right? So it's not as impactful. I could not make these plays before. I couldn't do it before. But now I can dive that fort, heal while auto attacking, run this guy down. There's nothing that he can do. There's absolutely nothing he can do. I'm running down under forts to kill somebody as a Tracer because I can self-heal. And it's because I can self-heal a lot. I can stay in there for an extra second to a second and a half longer than I ever could. And then you factor in the blink range at level 13 with Untouchable. It means that I can go in, I can use 2 of my charges, and I could have potentially gone in and picked the level 4 talent, which gives me a blink charge after I apply a pulse bomb. And then I can use all 3 charges to track this person down, and I still have a blink charge when I get out. And that 33% range after I use recall puts me out of tower range. And I'm out. Like that is the degree of which I can play Tracer now. You were never able to do this before unless you had a Tass and Malfurion. Tassadar's gone in that role, so now you only have a Malfurion. And with a Malfurion, you might be able to do that. But the fact that I can get heals coming out of that and do that, these are plays that you could never make before. Tracer is terrifying, man. I hate playing against Tracers right now, and I love playing as Tracer right now.
I like your idea about the sort of, what do we call it in World of Warcraft? A global delay, a delay that is forced between your blink charges. So we now have to kind of.
They have it on our melee. Like if you go double melee, like there's a 1 second. You can't just like WW. You have to like W wait W.
Yeah, that could be healthy.
They got to come up with something. They got to target something.
Well, what about some of our other reworks since we last talked to you? Zool, how did he land with you?
He just took over, man. That hero is so broken for so long, and they've nerfed some stuff. They nerfed some of his damage output, but he's still a very good hero. A very good hero. I think that we're finally in a spot to where he doesn't feel like he has to be first pick, first ban. So I think we're kind of in a decent spot. They started with the health change. I'm like, his health is not the issue. They reverted that back by like 200, but it was this last patch that nerfed the Q damage, the jailer damage. Those things are having the biggest impact. And I think that I don't know the stats, but I'm pretty sure that probably it was at least a 3 to 5% drop in his win rate easily.
But you are guessing, I believe, fairly, down 3.5% since last week.
Yeah, and I think that's good. Zool still, like, he's going to be better on other maps compared to some. But the fact that I could literally take Zool onto a 2-lane map and just 1v1 people was kind of ridiculous. The fact that like his level 1 talents are pretty intriguing, but like he did so much damage, and then you just picked I think it's like 12% damage on explosion, maybe 15%. I think it's 12. You just walk up and like it's like, all right, I do enough damage. My jailers are gonna blow up because they're right on top of you. I'm gonna blow up because I'm gonna do like a huge chunk of damage. Like nobody could take that. Nobody could take that. Now like we're at least in a reasonable spot. So I think that they find, and I think this area should be their blueprint towards how they tackle when they go back to a Zagara. Any hero that has summons makes it very hard to balance because it's so easy for them to push structures, and therefore they have great PvE value. If you buff up the PvP side, that has an inherent value on the PvE as well. So like that's why I think like Zagara, they've had to nerf her. Like every time she gets a buff, it's like, oh, she's broken. They're like, well, we're just gonna have to nerf her again. And then they just nerf her to oblivion, and then she can't be played. So like, you want these PvE heroes to turn PvP, and I think they've done a very good job on some of the heroes. And I think the changes that they last made with Zagara on her percentage-based damage talents make her good, but they still have to balance around the fact that if 2 of my 3 abilities are summons, it's never going to go well. It's going to be hard to balance, and every time they change the map. So things like that I think Zool is a pretty good blueprint on how to balance around that, albeit that his was just a trait thing, but they added his trait to his Q and jailers became good, but it still feels balanced, you know?
Yeah. So does this mean I can ask for and hope for my roaches to blow up on my target? Would that be nice?
Man, 1.5% damage every time they attack, and when they expire, they blow up.
Hey, if it's okay on Zool.
Yeah, but they blew up for like, I think they nerfed it for like 49 to 47 baseline.
Yeah. Yep.
Might as well pick Asmodee and Demonic Invasion.
So while we're on the subject of hopefully bans getting a little more interesting and freed up, since we're talking about Zool, what do you think? Where's Deathwing fallen for you?
He's awful now. It's another one of those like almost impossible to balance heroes, and like I haven't seen a Deathwing in my game, and when he is, he just gets blown up. I think that's another impossible to balance hero. Like adding unstoppable to him, yeah, I get it. Like he's a big scary hero, but you do that kind of. I mean, his health pool in the beginning was like the highest or like second highest. Now his base health got nerfed all the way to like 2750. So like level 1 is probably like 2800. And his auto attack damage, which was too strong in the beginning, that went from like 200 to like 160 or 170. Like whatever it is, it was that drastic. Like we're talking about nerfing health by 10%, nerfing auto attack by like 30%, 20%. Like this was the original Deathwing that came out. His other talents, the AoE fire talent, all those things, those were nerfed by like 25%. That's what's crazy is where Deathwing was versus where he's at now. And that's how drastic of a change it took to completely remove him from even being considered a pick.
Release a little.
And I think that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like bringing it back around to philosophy. Like philosophically, do you like would you rather reworks be? I mean, obviously, I think in a perfect world, we'd like them to be good and balanced, and they're not to be a huge issue. But if you had to lean on the side of caution or lean on the side of let's just overtune it a little bit so people actually play this damn hero and it's effective.
Yeah.
Which way do you lean?
Overtune it a little. Okay. Start up, go down.
Because
which is why they're so off on Cassia.
That's where I was going. Oh, you went right where I was heading. I feel bummed about the Cassia rework because, like, at the core, I like the rework. I like how she's supposed to work now, but she just doesn't do enough work.
Her I was a big fan of previous Cassia. She was always scary to pick because 4 range, but Charge Strikes was busted. Like that thing was insane good. Charge Strikes is there. They nerfed it so that it has like a different function, but it's a good function. They made her Q have 2 charges baseline instead of having to get 20 stacks and 40 stacks for extra charges and damage. And I think that's an okay compromise. But they nerfed the damage. They buffed the cooldown reduction. They nerfed her auto attack by like a significant margin. I think we can all acknowledge the armor thing is a little wonky right now. But if we look at the totality of the rework and the talents and the amount of time that went into it, I think that they nailed almost all of it outside of the armor and the tuning of her damage. If they can get that right, like we're playing a very good hero. And if they can balance the numbers, I'm all on that train. I needed another auto attacker that I could feel comfortable playing. But right now, she doesn't put out any damage. Like, I mean, the first game I played, I'm like, all right, let's go check it out. I'm gonna go play her in quick match. I kid you not. First game, Warhead Junction, I cried because it's Warhead Junction. Second, there was a Rexar fighting me. I stood middle in that map and A-rammed for like 7 straight minutes versus a Rexar, spamming Q over and over and over again. And I'm like, dude, I am just like attacking like crazy. I have been in a constant fight for the first 7 to 8 minutes of this game. I don't even know where the nukes are. I don't even know where anything is. This Rexar, for whatever reason, and it was like me and a healer versus Rexar and Deckard. And we just sat there and we just duked it out the entire time. And I look at my damage and I'm like, oh, that's not good. This is not what I expected it to be. And it was at that moment that I knew, like, this isn't good. And I went Q build. So then I played a few more games. I went Charge Strikes. And I played a few more games. I went this. And I'm like, I think I have to spec and defend talents and acknowledge that whether I go Q or Charge Strikes, it's not enough damage. Neither of them put out anywhere near enough damage to justify a carry roll. Not only a carry roll, but a carry roll from a hero that still has tied for the shortest auto attack range in the game now, where before it was from a ranged carry assassin to now it's the same as Tychus and Blaze, conveniently enough. And I do that little of damage. And I think that's a major, like, again, from a rework perspective, I think they nailed it. I think it's going to be good. But right now, dude, that thing is so undertuned, like, it makes me sad. It makes me sad. For now.
Well, I would imagine a tweak, a buff in the next patch, and so far, yeah. I mean, they've been hitting the we call it a 4-letter word here. They've been hitting the cadence of like every 3 weeks, right? We're like, oh, okay, here's a new patch, and it's at least for us, the things we've been talking about and assuming that are going to get buffed, it happens. Like it happened with Tassadar. We were sitting there for 2 weeks after the Tassadar rework going, he's got to be buffed in the next patch, right? And of course he was. Turns out to be quite successful, by the way. He's still climbing. So
the problem with that is like from the get-go, every Master Grandmaster player was playing W build and the win rate was high. The talents that they buffed were Q quest talent and auto attack talent. And that was what everybody from Diamond lower was playing. Diamond and lower players all want to have more damage. And I get it. Like it's very appealing. But in terms of like functionality, and I talked about this in a video that I made, Tassadar, and they buffed bad talents because they were underperforming. And that's totally acceptable. But if they played Tassadar differently, they would realize that Tassadar is actually really good without those talents. Like the level 1 talent sounds terrible. You get more range than you get mana back. That's it. Like, that doesn't sound good. Oh, I can pick Q and I can get up to 200, now up to 250 damage. Do I want 250 more damage on my Q, or do I want to have 33% range and mana back, right? Like nobody in their right mind is going to be like, I want extra range and mana back. Like it just doesn't sound appealing. I'd rather have 250 more damage. And in reality, like I think Tassadar, because they made him into a carry role, I think it's a very successful rework, probably one of the best ever, to be honest with you, in terms of what they had to work with versus what they went to. And I think that if people realize that Tassadar doesn't always have to be the carry role, like they would realize like, oh my goodness, like I can do a lot with Tassadar. I have really good wave clear. I can reduce spell armor and physical armor with my 10 and 13 talents. I can do damage, but also make my team that much better around me. And that's like the biggest part of like trying to get people to understand about Tassadar's rework is that there's so much more to Tassadar than just doing damage. And, but they buffed underperforming talents and they left the good talents alone. That's what I want people to understand is like, there were good talents. You just weren't picking them.
No, it was a very different thought philosophy. He is like a lane clear armor support negator duder. It's interesting on paper and in quick match. Black hole is wrecking face and it looks great, and then the laser beam hits you and you go, oh my goodness, I was behind everyone and this still really hurt. This must be the build. But Archon, I've accepted it now, is just armor reduction. Plus we're bloodlusting anyway, so why not have big Archon? My. Yeah, and then getting there with your with all your W talents. That's the way to think of him, and I was wrong.
Well, it's just like, again, like my first instinct was Q build. I'm like, Q build's gonna be the way. Like everybody's first instinct is like, the range isn't sexy. Like I'm already gonna be in that area, so what do I need the range for? Mana return doesn't do anything for me. So why am I picking this talent? And then it's like, when you start to wrap your head around some of those things, I do like the fact that they buffed the quote unquote birth time of the force wall, because that thing was rough, man. But I mean, they were quick to address a lot of that, and they've buffed talents. The one thing is that always worries me when they do that, when they buff underperforming talents to that degree, they buff underperforming talents that are probably the most picked by like a wide margin, is that they incentivize, I don't want to say bad play or worse play. They just incentivize like a different play style that I think it's unhealthy for the long-term education of the people playing this hero. Like they're going to run that hero into the ground picking Q build, when in reality, if they would put some time in, they realize like, dude, you'd have like a 60% win rate if you pick different talents. Instead, you've got a 50% win rate or 45% win rate saying that the hero is bad. And in reality, the hero is not bad. It's just, there's certain talents that aren't buffed, and I'm okay with what they've done with the buffs. I just wish they would have waited for them.
It might eventually end up with something like a bake-in, right? Like we've seen that over many different reworks or just underperforming talents. I mean, we see underperforming talents buffed all the time, but sometimes we also see like a shift at a tavern tier or a talent tier level, right? So I don't know. Like,
talent.
I'll play some Battlegrounds.
Yep. Slip. It was an update this week. Sorry.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's all
That's
good. Gotta get that death rattle dinosaur.
I want to play the new beast. I know it's not heroes, but I want to play the new tier 1 beast and see if I can, because death rattles are very, very prominent at tier 2, man. They're very prominent at tier 2.
We need battlegrounds. Heroes is a stressful game. I don't want to play it when I'm sleepy or trying to get sleepy. You know?
What I'm hearing, JHow, is you want to come on the Hearthstone show sometime.
I would do it. I like, that is my nighttime game. Like, I sit in bed, I play a couple of battlegrounds, and then I go to bed.
Yeah, that's the way.
That's my wind down game.
It's rad, man. By the way, the new beast is sick. Just don't take on tier 1. You're gonna lose the first 2 rounds. So back to heroes.
Yes. I gotta ask about Mephisto. Where is this guy right now, and is he mage number 1?
Yeah. So if you watch any streams that are high level, master, grandmaster, Mephisto is the first big hero. And a lot of people below that don't know why. And I think a lot of people didn't realize it at first. Everybody was so used to the Q build. We saw the Mephisto rework, and everybody's like, all right, this hero can't be anywhere near as good. And it like slowly started to creep. It had a very weird creep too, because it wasn't immediate. And it all happened with the level 1 change, because it used to be every 5th tick did bonus damage, and then they made it every 3rd tick. And that's what makes it very good. So it quickly became W build. And then it's like, all right, well, we got to go full W build because of this, right? And so the full W build at 4 gave you the shield. But then people realized, like, well, like, if I don't get the immediate cooldown reduction, then I'm kind of out of the fight as a Mephisto. Because as a Mephisto, ideally, you want to have both your E and your W, which means you have to hit targets to be able to get the cooldown reduction. And when you fall into that territory and you miss maybe that priority target, what's your fallback option? The same way, like where we just saw an Orphea buff, a small buff can go a long way. So then all of a sudden the globe talent made this much more viable. I think different maps you can go W build, but most maps you can also go globe build. So now I get extra regen, all of this stuff, plus the cooldown reduction, which means that I'm less reliant on my healer and I'm less reliant on going Q build. And so that started to creep in. And then you add in the factor that you have a level 7 talent that says, well, if I hit you with my lightning nova, you're slowed. And so now I can just track you the entire time. And so it really came around the level 1 and level 7 talents during the rework for Mephisto. And I don't think it was as obvious to people because we had played Q build so much that we didn't really see it at the beginning. And then it slowly started to creep in. Look, if I just had the level 1 and 7 talents and pick maybe the level 4 talent, but let's say I picked no other talents, like it's that good. And then you add in the level 4 and 13 synergy now, and you pick the Durance of Hate. Like, I have Durance every now and again. Durance allows me to lock down somebody, press W on them, and kill them by myself. And if I don't kill them, I still have all the cooldown reduction in the world. So I think that I wouldn't be surprised if we see a minor tweak. I think if they reverted that talent back at level 1 to be every 5th tick instead of 3rd, that might be enough of a nerf. But like right now, just due to the W talents at 1 and 7, like, dude, it's really, really strong. It's just, you just have to make sure you hit multiple people with your W to get maximum cooldown reduction. I think that's the hard part, is like at lower levels, it does make it more difficult. But that's why they threw the level 7 talent in to get the slow so that you could stay on the people, thus making it an absolutely awful hero to play against.
So that explains the level 13 sort of switcheroo over to Shard of Hate, because we're reinforcing that if I don't get the hits, I can still recover and get back in the fight and do it again.
Yeah, so there's a lot of like the 1 and 7 synergy, and the 4 is like my safety net of like, I still get a globe, I can still get cooldown, and then 13 comes in as well. 13 has the auto attack talent, which can trigger it, but a lot of people have been going into the heroic cooldown reduction as well, just so they have Durance a lot more often. I think both of those are actually very good talents, but I think the auto attack is definitely a very viable one as well.
Well, people don't expect Mephisto to be wailing on a stacked team that hard even after he's done his spell biz. It can really
2 rounds of W's is like, oh, I guess I'll die now.
Yeah, I have not in the history of this game seen anybody except for maybe release Kale Thos like 1v5 at 20 so many times.
It's pretty awful.
How do we turn that around? Like, do you have any strategies? Like, I've seen things like, oh, you just Twilight Dream when he jumps in on you. Well, All right. 90 second
JHow
cooldown
is
to stop
shaking
one
his
Mephisto
head
teleport.
and grinning in disapproval for the audio audience.
I mean, I can give him an Uther stun. There's this great, there's this overwhelming philosophy that, all you got to do is Stukov silence where he's going to be, just hang out where he's going to return. It's no big deal. It's like kill Morales. What should I be doing to stop Mephisto?
Well, Garrosh has always been good for those moments, right? Because you can Indomitable walk past the enemy team and then go there and you can toss the Mephisto back in. It's just Garrosh isn't super popular. So it is very difficult. Getting any type of slow on Mephisto as well. It's like the counter slow. Stepping into the circle can be scary because if I step into the circle, then their tank very well could get me. So normally you want to step into the circle. That forces the Mephisto to go back instead of running backwards from it because you're just going to continue to take the damage because of the slow at 7. You have to walk into the circle and then walk backwards. And I think mechanically that can be very difficult. Post 20, as you said, when you get like double lightning Nova, it's like, oh, there's literally nowhere I can walk to now, JHow. You're crazy. There was always one that was really funny to do. I don't know if I really endorse this. Just wait, like pick Kalthas and put a living bomb on him, and then he delivers the living bomb to his team when he goes back.
That's cute. Yeah.
That was always one. I think right now, because of that, it does leave very little counterplay to that. And so I think that's what makes it difficult, right? It's like anytime, like Chromie, right? Chromie has like such insane range that they've had to like balance around a lot of that. And right now, as a Mephisto, if I Lightning Nova blink in, like I can go a pretty long distance. So come and get me. Like you can't get me back here. And so like right now, it does leave very little counterplay, I think, as a whole to deal with that. So I wish I had a good answer for you, but like that is a very difficult one right now, which is why you see it at high levels. It is a first pick, first ban hero. Because if a good player gets their hands on that hero, there's almost no stopping them.
We got a great question from a returning player about building an overall roster. And while we're kind of on this topic of maybe top tiers of each role, if you were to give us a rundown as to what we have 8 slots, right? What should be sitting in our 8 slots if we were just cream of the crop drafting?
Yeah, this came to us from Rob, by the way.
Any role?
Let's say you wanted to put Phil as your topic, so you have 2 of each of the mains.
Johanna, by far, like most well-rounded tank you'll ever play, like insanely good. I think somebody on this podcast knows about Johanna.
Rip it, man. Huh?
So many Johanna. What is your Johanna rank, by the way?
You mean like my ranked play or like level?
No, like your character rank.
33.
That's it? I've seen you play so much Johanna.
I know. I don't have a boost. I've never boosted myself.
Gotcha. I'm boosted. Johanna, I hate to say it, but Raynor, he's resident sleeper. But if you're a returning player, he's so good. Rhaegar.
With Raynor, is there an existing extreme opinion on level 1 talents?
Yeah, if you go Exterminator, like you're crazy. Like Battlefield of Eternity, you better go Exterminate. Look, here's how you have to look at it on Battlefield of Eternity. If I pick Raynor on Battlefield of Eternity, and let's say my team comp consists of Anduin, no damage on the Immortal. It consists of Garrosh, Diablo, Johanna, no damage on the Immortal. And let's fill in the blank for our offlane. Let's say we go Imperious. Let's say we go, who else is common there? Sonya, which can give you some damage. Let's say we go one of those, or maybe Thrall. Like Thrall does give you some damage. And then let's say my other ranged assassin is who? Fill in the blank. Who would be your other ranged assassin alongside Raynor? Like just throw a couple out there. Let's say you're low level. Let's say it's Kalthas. Let's say it's any number of these heroes. The problem that you have is like, if you don't have a carry hero in a fight, or I have a mage like a Kalthas or a Jaina, if Jaina misses her skill shots and Kalthas misses her skill shots, that's the problem with picking a mage on an open map. I just walk away from those things and now you can't hurt me. So now I need to have more damage from my melee roll and I need to have more damage from my ranged roll. If my other ranged hero doesn't do damage because they want a PvE talent, I now can't kill anybody. If I see a Rainer pick Exterminator anywhere else outside of Battlefield of Eternity, I don't understand it. You better have 0 wave clear, because the problem that you have, how many times, this is always the question that I ask people that go amateur opponent on Artanis, that go Exterminator on Rainer. They're like, I can do camps faster and I can clear waves. And I ask you this question in return. What do you do with it? What do you do with that camp that you got? What do you do with that wave that you cleared 5 seconds faster? What did you do with that camp? What did you do with that wave? And I guarantee you, nobody can tell me what they can do. Now, if I'm at a pro level, if I'm at a pro level and I get a camp faster, even then I'm still not picking Exterminator. I can tell you what I'm going to do with that camp 2 minutes into the future. I can tell you what that camp's going to do and what I'm going to do either with that camp or what I'm going to do in the other lane and utilize that camp as pressure. I can tell you what I'm going to do for the next 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Anybody that plays this game can't tell me what they're going to do at that camp. They'll be like, it's going to push the lane. It's like, but what are you going to do while that's pushing? What can you accomplish with that camp? What can you accomplish with that? On any map other than Battlefield of Eternity, what do you accomplish? And I guarantee you not a single person would be able to tell me what the timeline is for the next 60 seconds, what the next 30 seconds would be, other than whatever they got is going to do exactly what it does. It doesn't tell me what you do. What do you accomplish by getting that faster? And nobody can tell me what they accomplish by getting it faster. And that is a very big problem. It's like, it does it faster. It's like, it's more damage. So clearly it must be better. It's like, all right, well, you used Artanis with amateur opponent on Hanamura, which a lot of people did. It allows me to solo the samurai camp. Okay, what do I do with that samurai camp? Are we pushing with it? Are we moving the objective? Or conversely, do I go get that camp on Hanamura and then I just run down the middle and go team fight? They have theirs pushing, I have mine pushing. And tell me what Exterminator does in that 5-on-5 fight. It does nothing.
So with Artanis, are you saying that we shouldn't do amateur opponent, or that there are better heroes than amateur opponent Artanis?
Both. I actually like the new Artanis talent to a degree in the right circumstance. I thought Seasoned Marksman would be the one before. A lot of people also pick bad Artanis talents, but beyond level 1. But Artanis, same thing. It's like, you don't do any damage in a fight. None of that helps you in a fight. And if I showed you 100 replays, how many of those are going to be decided by team fights, and how many of those are going to be decided by you getting a camp 10 seconds faster? And I guarantee you, like 99% of those games are decided by a team fight. And you can't tell me that you and your team somehow magically, with no voice comms, coordinated a 5 versus 4 fight or 5 versus 5 fight while simultaneously having a camp pushing. Most of the time, you're benefiting off circumstance and luck. It's like, oh, well, we won the team fight and we got the camp pushing. Well, that's great. I don't think that was your goal. I think that's just it was a circumstance that ended up playing out. And if you go back and you watch a lot of the games that happen outside of Battlefield of Eternity, and you look at Rainer games, and you look at your Rainer that did 40,000 damage, your offlaner did 36,000 damage, and your other ranged carry did 55 or 60,000 damage. All of those fights, you probably lost by maybe like an extra 1,000 damage, an extra 2,000 damage, maybe an extra 500 damage could have killed somebody. Maybe an extra bit of 10% damage that a lot of people like to preach upon could have been able to kill somebody. An Exterminator doesn't do that. And I think there is a time and a place for all of these PvE talents. If my team doesn't draft wave clear, if I realize like I need to double soak in certain situations, I'm not saying they're completely irrelevant. But what I'm saying is, like, when you go to and you watch those team fights, and when your Rainer can't keep up with your other damage dealer within 10% of what they're doing, within 5 to 20% of what they're doing for what seems like a lot of those games, then you now have a ranged assassin that doesn't do any damage. Yes, they do camps. Yes, they do waves. But when it comes to the meat and potatoes of any game, they all come down to a team fight. And nobody can argue that. Nobody can argue that it doesn't come down to a team fight. And if I have somebody that has a level 1 talent to where they can do 10 to 20% more damage if they went stacking, or 10% more damage plus a slow, which helps my team, and I'm missing that extra damage, like, there's a reason Exterminator does nothing for me in a fight. And everything that I'm doing, if I get a camp, if I get a shaman camp post 16 on Infernal Shrines faster, and then I go and I fight them on the objective, and I can't kill them, and they kill me, that shaman camp does nothing. Like, it does nothing.
That's an interesting thought. almost like there are those times where you're winning and there's nothing to do. Can we say that's a learning opportunity that you drafted wrong, even if you're winning? Like we should have invested less in camps, invested less in lane clear?
Well, you always want to have wave clear in camps. You just don't need it 10 seconds faster because you picked a level 1 talent. I can still clear this. Here's the thing. What's stopping one other teammate from coming over to help me on that camp? Like, there's a huge difference between the Battlefield of Eternity Immortal objective versus like, hey, I'm over here on the Siege Giant camp. Boy, I tell you what, if I get the Siege Giant camp 10 seconds faster, boy, it's a game changer. It's like, no, that's not gonna, like, I can send one person over to make up for that extra damage, and then we get it just as fast, and I lost nothing on the map.
No, I get you. Definitely with Hanamura, we're seeing this a lot. Where just higher end teams, you don't really have to draft for the camps because it's such a huge part. We'll do it together. We'll do it. We'll leave Johanna in lane and we'll all go do it together.
So I want to take this opportunity. Somebody says you can be back to the lane or to the team fight faster. First off, why is your team fighting without you? And if they are fighting without you, you should have leashed that camp and went to the team fight. Second off, getting back to the lane faster. Getting back to the lane faster is the assumption that you don't have somebody in the lane. If I'm on a 3-lane map, I should have one person in every lane and I should have 1 to 2 person off on camps. There's nothing that's going to happen differently. I don't miss soak. Everybody's soaking the XP, and as long as they're not out there dying. So let's say, for instance, I do get to that lane. I come back 10 seconds faster after finishing that camp. What do I accomplish by being in that lane faster? Nothing. I just come out there and I probably just poke the enemy team, and that's it. Nobody wins. Nobody dies. Nobody does anything differently. Like, versus what I do in a team fight versus what I do in a rotation.
You drafted both Kel'Thuzad and Zul'jin, and they're both just crazy. They're trying to get themselves killed out there. So Johanna has to protect them in mid while they're getting their stacks. And that's why we can't do camps. That's why we can't have nice things.
That is normally how it goes.
So we've succeeded in making it through 2 picks of our 8.
Okay. So Johanna, Raynor, Rhaegar. New Anduin is insane if you go W build. So I'll say Anduin right now. Johanna, Rhaegar, Raynor, Anduin.
Did you add Anduin because it's easier to
New
play
Anduin.
than
Yeah, it's
Anna?
very easy to play. So if you're coming back and he's stronger now.
Cool.
I think that's it from ranged. From tank perspective, ETC. Anybody can get away with ETC. And then from off lane, I would say Thrall is probably one of the most well-rounded. And if not, look, if you can get Yrel down, Yrel's the hero you want to pick. So there's your 8. Maybe 9. I can't count.
We're at 7. You got one more.
Okay, one more ranged assassin.
Let's get a mage.
Yeah,
Who would be
at
our...
the moment, we just have Raynor.
I think Mephisto's too hard. We'll say... I don't want to say Li Ming because people force her on too many maps. Something that's consistent would either be Jaina or Kael'thas, and I think Kael'thas would be fine. Kael'thas still good because if you're coming back to the game in a long time, Kael'thas is pretty easy to get damage. Press D and press W twice, and everything's good.
Kael'thas is nice. Yeah, that's my go-to. I like Jaina a lot, but that's usually because I can't get Kael'thas.
So for our emailer here, we got Johanna ETC for your tanks, Raynor Kael'thas for your damage. Rhaegar, Anduin for your heals, and Thrall, but Yrel should be your project character.
Yes.
I like it.
I dig. Well, rad. Well, JHow, man, you weren't kidding. You had a lot to share today.
I talk too much, man. You guys got to be like, all right, moving on.
No. I don't want to stop. They get to listen to us every day. I say the same thing that's not paradox because you share the very polite gene of being like, no. I talked to him like, no, that's why we asked you on. That's the whole reason, the whole point. So thank you very much. And if we didn't call out your question specifically, I think everyone who wrote in, a lot of this got covered kind of naturally over the course of our discussion today. So thank you to Sightstorm, Lupus, Mr. X, Elian, Carezen, everyone else who wrote in with questions. We kind of naturally got to a lot of these topics over the course of the conversation. If you want to write in, be a part of the show, you can do so over at itncast@gmail.com. Or if you're a patron, just drop us a message in the patron Discord. But as our guest for today, JHow, if people somehow are unfamiliar with you, where can they find all of your stream, all of your Heroes content?
Twitch, it's just twitch.tv/JHow. And I have been making a lot of YouTube content, which is just youtube.com/JHow Gaming. And that's pretty much where I do the majority of my work. So I think those two you'll find are pretty active.
Rad. Well, other than that, we want to thank those of you supporting us over at patreon.com/ITN. Thank you for the support, everybody. If you like the show and you think to yourself, how do I support these two nerds? That's the best way. Also, we pay our guests, and that's because of your support. So thank you very much. Also, a big thanks to our producers, Declan H., Cheesy Bob, Chris K., Mike C., and Eric C. You can catch us live Thursdays, typically at 3 p.m. Eastern Time over at twitch.tv/AMoveTV. And you can get the podcast anywhere you download your podcasts. Everyone's just streaming nowadays. You go to the store, you just hit play, hit us with a subscribe. I know it's a weird thing. We're not on YouTube, but it matters. It helps us out. Go subscribe on your podcatchers, everybody. Kyle, before we leave, you do more than just Incident Access. Where can everyone find you?
Yes, you should find me. This week, let's talk about Heroes Hearth. YouTube.com/Heroes Hearth, where I'm making learn to play videos. This last week, we just talked about Johanna. And it's not really a Johanna guide. It's about getting value in your spells and using blind as an example. But if you're blinding with low value, what are you doing out there? Go watch the How to Get Value video over there.
That is a very important thing. I think that they should watch that video. That is a very important thing.
It is. And if you have nothing to blind, people are like, well, I just want, no, it's a great ability. You dismount. There are so many things you can do with blind if you don't have anything to blind. In fact, maybe it's even better in that world. And look forward to next week, where I I smack the hornet's nest with a Samuro counters video. And I'm sure Sammys are going to love it. They'll agree with everything I have to say.
Well, we've been too busy palling around with JHow, but you smacked my hornet's nest with your how to counter Rexar video, you monster. What are you doing? Do you know how much success I've been finding? Could you please not tell people how to counter me? Thanks.
Did anyone take anything weird in lane that I suggested versus here? You're like, what's going on?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, also my game time's been a little down this week because I've been on and off sick, man. I don't know what the hell's been going on with me, but no, so far it's still people trying to counter me with things like Thrall, which I agree with JHow's suggestion of Thrall for solo lane, but you're not going to beat me on Rexar with Thrall. Sorry, it's not going to happen.
But I got to crash, Garrett. I got to complete my crash.
That's nice. I'm not going to die. Like, you can finish your quest. You're not going to win.
He's not going to finish his quest. No, he's not going to do it.
Yeah, folks, actually, seriously, like it's fun to give you crap because like Twitter went off, man. I loved seeing all the tweet replies of people being like, oh my God, this is the day that Kyle and Garrett never work together again. But dude, it's a great video. People should go watch it. Folks, I'm Garrett Art on Twitter. Everything I do, this podcast included, can be found over at amove.tv. That's AMOVE.tv. Got a Hearthstone show. You want to hear about that new Battlegrounds update that we accidentally talked about today? Go listen to The Angry Chicken. That literally is basically the entire new episode. Just us breaking that down, talking about the new heroes. Unlike every other time when there's a Battleground update, it hasn't taken me 3 weeks to see the new heroes. I actually got to play all of them, like within 24 hours of the patch dropping. So go check that out. Everything amove.tv. So thank you for listening, everybody. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of Into the Nexus. We'll be back in a week's time. But until then, good luck and have fun.
Take care.